Tito, hello, it's Maya Grace in case you don't know, and it has been a heck of a year, friends. There's a lot that I don't want to get into, and there's a lot that I'm actually really excited to share with you because of how it's affected me and how I've grown because of it, and finding that balance has been a bit of a challenge. So I apologize if in places this video feels kind of vague, or if in other places it feels a little bit gushy or oversharey. This is what I'm comfortable talking about, and I hope you get some value from this. But essentially, I had a life or death situation, and because of it, I had to grab what I could and leave where I was living, and I wound up plummeting face first into an equally bad situation. But all of this affected my ability to hold on to my clothing and my dog and my sewing supplies. It truly took some actual effort to survive what was going on. And right in the middle of that mess, I had what I thought was going to be my Cinderella moment. My good friend Miah invited me to a royal wedding in India, and this is literally what dreams are made of. This gave me such a feeling of dignity and importance, which I really did not have at the time because of just the situation I was living in. It made every awful thing that had happened to me up until that point feel like it was worth it because I was getting a happy ending, you know? But it was going to be a huge challenge to get there, and I almost declined immediately because I knew it was going to be so hard for me to make it happen. Then an anonymous supporter reached out and was like, hey, I heard about this thing that you were offered to have happen, and I am going to financially support you and get you there. Just make some content when you do it. And I was like, twist my arm. So I was gonna do it. All I had to do was pack my bag, get my paperwork in order, and film some content, essentially. Let's go back to some footage that I filmed in the process of trying to make this happen, and maybe that'll paint a better picture for you. And I just spent half of a week's paycheck on a random hotel so I could sleep between two greyhounds. So essentially, to travel out of country, you need a visa, right? Well, you need a passport first. And to get a passport, you ideally should have proof that you legally exist and have for some time. And I didn't because my birth certificate had been thrown away. Not by me, I would like to add. So I had to apply for a new birth certificate from the Ohio State Board. That took like a month to get in, which was longer than I was expecting. And then by the time my birth certificate got in, I only had 2 months to get my passport and my visa, realistically. And all of the places where you go to do that the long way were completely booked. And also there were some complications with my case, so I had to fly to a like federal passport place. There's like one for every state, right? And the one in Miami was closed because of hurricane reasons. So I had to go to the one in Atlanta. I had literally no choice but to go to Atlanta. And given the remarks of everyone in the Greyhound as we pulled up to the Atlanta station, nobody in Atlanta is here for any reason of their own volition. It is all exclusively for reasons out of their control that they are in Atlanta. There's some beautiful parts to the city. I actually really enjoyed my time walking around. After I did my first passport meeting, I actually really did enjoy a lot of the architecture and the street art. I'm gonna give you like a little bit of a montage of some of my favorite moments real quick. I love it. Like, that is so cool. I wonder if these guys can tell me how to get to the library. I mustache how this got here. But also I had like 3 separate people try to like herd me into a car, which is not an experience I've had. But it was like one of those situations where like I would rather look awkward and a little bit like over precautious than potentially like be taken to a secondary location. So needless to say, I really wanted to not just be like aimlessly circling the city after my passport meeting and everything. So I went to the library because the 2 hotels I checked with, it was money to stay there, and I wasn't sure it was worth it. And so I went to the library, and the librarian, after I was there for like a half hour, inserted to nod off because I've been awake for like 30 straight hours at this point. But one of the librarians comes up to me, and I didn't even know what was happening. She was like, "Ma'am, you can't sleep here." And I was like, "Oh." And then she like goes off on me about how I'm like disrespecting the environment of the library, and I'm just kind of sitting there like, okay. um, so like, I don't know, man. I don't know if Atlanta's for me. I'm pretty sure that I was safe all of today, in all honesty, but it still was enough to give me the heebie-jeebies, you know? I'm not super looking forward to being in the bus terminal at midnight tonight, but I am looking forward to being back in Jacksonville at 7 in the morning and then immediately doing a shift at work. It'll be a fun time though. It'll be a good shift. I know I'll have a lot of like nice energy, which will be good for playing some dress up. I'm ready. I just have to pack and do some more of the boring planning stuff, and India will be underway. I am so excited. After getting back to where I was staying at the time, which, let me remind you, was not a very safe environment, basically I was either at work or I was cleaning or I was dealing with just the most bizarre problems I've ever been faced with. But even with all of that, I was working really hard on video production and trying to make content and, you know, trying to make a space that was very much not conducive for filming work for filming. And I was planning this big comeback and I had a backlog of videos that I was gonna do, and it was gonna be like this gorgeous thing. And one of those videos was going to be this project vlog that I'm going to show you now. For familiarity's sake, I'm just gonna hold this while it doesn't light up or anything and pretend like the audio quality is good and worth listening to. I have been invited to a wedding in India by Miah Singh, and I'm super excited, super nervous, and I was told that I needed a winter coat by Miah, and I had this plan in my head that I was gonna make like a beautiful, structured, tailored coat because I've never done that before. I know how to in theory, and I've always wanted to, but then I went to the fabric store, and in the baby section of all places, I found this black material that is just like, it's like minky, but softer, and there's like a deeper color to it. I didn't know they made baby fabric in goth. So I am going to make myself a baby coat like the actual child I am, and it is going to be soft and vampiric and beautiful, and oh my gosh, I started rubbing this fabric as a bit, but it is actually so soft that I don't want to not be touching it. It's, oh, amazing. But yeah, no, I fully haven't filmed anything or sewn anything in like 6 months, due to a variety of reasons. My life kind of exploded. I'm putting it back together on my terms, so it's gonna be a good time. And thank you to all of you that have supported me through this. Again, I just want to really thank you guys because like my channel grew while I was stagnant and didn't post anything. I got Ko-fi donations still, and I like low-key lived off of those for a hot second. So like, thank you. Like genuinely thank you. Anyways, the coat, let's go.
I used one of my favorite fitting t-shirts to make a basic bodice block for my coat, and I just copied it directly onto my fabric. I just wanted to keep things nice and simple for this project since I had such a tight deadline. I also cut this giant panel for the back so it'd have a lot of volume to play with. Another fun thing about this fabric, you can actually use your nail to mark on it. So then to draft the sleeve, I just planned out my little point there. I used the length of my arm, and then I cut the shape of my arm's eye so that I could just install it really nice and easy. Then with the remainder of my fabric, I cut out the 2 front panels, and I was also really careful to cut this little like front draggy piece because I thought it would be really dramatic and give a nice shape. I had never done pockets exactly like this before, but I've seen them on other garments, and I really wanted to experiment and try it out. So I'm only using 1 little pocket piece instead of 2 and having a floppy pocket, and I'm just going to go ahead and sew that to the back of my fabric. And it was time to pull out the machine and start putting everything together. This was actually one of the only times that I was able to get my machine out while I was living in this particular place, so it was really nice just to take the time and do something for me. Unfortunately, this is around the time that I realized I installed one of the front panels with the silkier side of the minky facing the inside instead of the outside, but it's really not all that noticeable in the final product, so I'm not too upset about it. In the grand scheme of things, this jacket is one of the things I'm the most proud of, because I pushed through a really tough situation and still made something, even though I really just felt like crawling in a hole and curling up and rotting.
This wasn't the only video I had planned for the December in India chunk of videos that I was going to be doing. I was going to do this cute little Christmas video with Miah and V and Anahid, and the whole point of that was going to be like you know, the traditions that you choose are more valuable than the traditions that are handed down to you, and the traditions that you choose to share should always be shared and not forced on other people. It was going to be a really good time, and I really was happy about what I wanted to say and the experience that I thought I was going to have. And I made these really cool flower crowns for everyone. Well, I half made them, actually. But these crowns were basically the death of me. I just barely had time to finish them, and I was trying to assemble them in between flights and at Anahid's house. It was a whole thing, but I still don't know what's going to become of them. I do know that the best laid plans fall through, obviously. This travel footage just kind of gets me because I know how happy I was and how relieved I was that things were finally going right. Just look at this girl. She has so much hope. And I really was thinking of this event as the moment where things would turn around and they would start going right for me. And I would get like a happy ending, a fade to black moment, and like the strange problems that seemed to just crop up around me all the time would stop. This would be the end of the story, and I would just frolic and have my happily ever after, and it would be simple and easy and nice because, you know, I kind of feel like I earned that. Like I deserve that in some way. But life doesn't really care about what you deserve, and it just unfolds the way that it's going to. Hello, it's me again. So, you might be expecting some cute, like, travel footage, and, like, you know, this would be the part of the vlog where we start shopping for fabrics and, like, doing all sorts of exciting, wonderful India things. Well, instead of that, my passport did not my passport didn't work, but the person who checked the information, she didn't check it right. So she shouldn't have put me on the flight. There is a bird. Okay, the fact that there's a bird is weird because this window that I'm filming in front of doesn't actually go to outside. It goes to the inside of the airport. I'm in the airport still. Anyways, I'm in India. I am not still going to India though. I legally am not allowed to leave the airport. I have a guy assigned to me, and I thought that was a joke at first, but then like we were joshing back and forth and he got very serious for a moment. He's like, I don't know how much of this is American sarcasm, but if you did try to break a window, we have many security measures and I don't advise it. And I was like, dude, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying really hard to focus on the positive. I just spent the last like 4 hours sobbing hysterically because of course the big question was, how are we going to get this lost American back home? And American Airlines is obviously going to make this right because this is as much of a them screw up as it is a me screw up. I have a flight in 18 hours back to where I came from, essentially. And I'm going to stay with Anahid's mom for like a day and person again, and then get the rest of the way back to my home, and that should be fine. So before I knew all of that, the plan changed like maybe 10 times, and I'm sitting in this like terminal in India, and whenever the passport first didn't work, whenever the visa thing first did not work, they usher me over and they have me sit down in this like very removed area, and I sit down and the first thing that I see is this giant sign that says deportation holding cell. I was not put in the cell. But it was right in front of me, and I'm just sitting there like pale-faced, shaking, like just freaking terrified. And a bunch of people keep like walking up to me and going, American Airlines woman? And I would go, yeah. And then they would speak, you know, amongst themselves in a language that I don't understand, which is fine. That's understandable. They're doing their job. I mean, I'm in here at 5 a.m. their time. So the translators were not like there. Nothing was being explained to me. I'm sobbing hysterically. By the time that they like say the words like, you have to go back, like you're going back to America, like you can't reapply for an Indian visa because of this incident for several months. I also met like an absolute freaking girl boss. We had dinner. She's in the same boat as me, essentially, where her visa got messed up and American Airlines was like, nah, get on the plane to a foreign country, it's fine. You don't need all your documents. Who needs that? She is understandably upset. And oh my gosh, is she channeling it in like the best way possible. And like, I now feel like I have a grip on both the situation and like my career plans. So that was actually really, really nice. So I'm not gonna complain about that particular aspect of this situation. I will complain about the fact that my handlers got lost while taking me to the hotel room that is like in the checked area. Like literally got lost. And like I could tell they were lost because they kept like pointing places and like looking around, and then they like look at me like oh, does she know? And then they look back at each other. And like I didn't say anything, obviously. I just kind of stood there and was like, mm-hmm. Yep, you totally know where we're going. I believe 100% that you know where we're going. Even though they did not. I'm going to be mourning the fact that I was not at this event probably for the rest of my life. And that's fine. Miah is obviously not upset. He's very understanding. He sent me a very heartfelt message, and I cried a little over it because I'm just crying anyway because I'm a giant sappy baby right now. And it was about, you know, just how it will be a different experience than the one that was planned because I'm not there. And like I do appreciate the sentiment of like we will miss you, but it also like just really hit of like maybe this isn't the good timeline. And that's okay. Because I'm gonna like as much as a lot of this was like several freak accidents commingling to create the perfect shitstorm. I perfect freak accidents have aligned in my life a lot, and I really want to look at this in a constructive post-mortem way. Like I'm past the point of just being like, oh my gosh, I don't get to do fun thing now. And now I'm kind of in the stage of like, how can I make this as how can I make it a good thing that this happened because of what I got from it? So that's where I'm at. I don't fully have an answer yet. And you know, it might be healthier to take an approach of like sometimes things just happen, but I've been taking that approach on a lot of things lately, and that particular philosophy is starting to just feel depressing. And like it's supposed to be empowering of like just take things as they come and get through it, but I don't want to survive anymore. Like I want to actually move towards a life that is stable and nice and not like this. And I don't know how that's done. I have really good news for the person at the end of that video. She did wind up doing exactly what she wanted to do, and she didn't have to do it alone like she thought she was going to have to. It's been 6 months since that was filmed, and I barely recognize myself. My life is completely different. I am happy, and maybe for the first time in my entire life, I actually feel like my own person and like I have freedom and I can be calm and I am in a safe environment where I don't have to regulate my behavior to please the people around me. I agreed to move in with my dear friend Katie and get out of the living situation that I was in before. But when I first landed at Katie's house, one of the first things that we did was find me a therapist. I did some really intensive cognitive reprocessing therapy. It was amazing. It's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I highly recommend it. I also figured out what I actually want from my life. I unpacked a bunch of garbage that I've just been carrying around with me for like since birth, and I took off the shiny happy mask, if you will, that I had handed to me, and figured out who I was underneath. And she's kind of awesome, and I like being her friend. And I like feeling like I am my own friend instead of feeling like I'm puppeting around an avatar that I have to make do and say exactly the right thing to benefit the people around me. Human autonomy is neat! Deeper than that, I've come to know that I have control of where my life goes, to a point. I get to choose what to do with the materials I've been handed. And first things first, I know that I can do a better job with that coat.
Namely, I know that I can have better volume, and also I really wanted to take some of the length out of it in that front part because it was dragging on the ground. Sunshine was really helpful with this. I quickly and sloppily drafted front panels and a nice hood and a back gore, and I sewed those into place. My real goal with this redo of this project was to stop fighting against the fact that the fabric was formless and stretchy and comfortable. Instead of trying to pretend like the coat was structured, I wanted a robe. I wanted a hoodie. I wanted something dramatic and comfy and lovely.
And now I have something that I can be proud of. The path to getting to where I am right now really sucked, and I would not recommend it. And I think that I was maybe given some very bad advice to take some really weird turns and loop-de-loops, and I probably should have reached for the proverbial seam ripper much sooner than I did. But all of that said, I'm happy with the final product. And I think that's all that matters, and it's my life, so I'm the one that gets to decide how I feel about it. All of this to say, expect more from me. I'm not going anywhere, and nothing is gonna keep me down forever. Bye, friends!
Here, you may see a snappy dragon in her natural environment. No, but like, check out the back shaping, and they've got the center back seam, and I've got to believe they put a bustle pad under here.
It looks like it's gotta be a bustle.
And then, did they do the front right? They did the front right. They didn't stick princess seams in the front. Good on. Good on that.
Who are
I
they?
want one of these so much. Like, seriously, I want one.
I also, like, am very distinctively not going for beautiful today. I very much was going for, like, stabby. Unfortunately, my trip pants turned my hands blue, so I feel like that added to the aesthetic in a way.
Truer words were never put on a wall.